Hello there. I just thought I'd do a follow-up video from last week's one about part 4. I was talking about part 4 last week and I got stuck on it a bit. I was going to do a reading and I realised part of it was I was a little bit uncomfortable with it. So I'm going to rewrite part 4 in fact here. Not significantly, just a little bit, so I feel a bit better about it. As it's a little bit, it affects a bit too much on society these days. And as I said last week, considering I wrote it a long time ago, I never really thought anything like this would actually happen. You know, it's kind of like the way I write my stories is like, just move my therapy bear out of the way. Got my little therapy bear there. I just started talking to my therapy bear because when I started making videos there last February, I found it a little bit strange talking to my phone or talking to the computer on the Chromebook here, as it's just, you know, a little bit unusual. I'm not familiar with this kind of thing at all, so I just started talking to a teddy bear. You know. So anyway, that's it. The part 4. That's the rest of the. Just pick them up there. I set it out there. So when it comes to rewriting the past, you have to be careful that it doesn't interfere with the future. So that's why I'm a little bit stuck, but I'm not too bothered about it really. And I'll just deal very briefly with the character that's causing the trouble. And he's basically a third generation businessman. And he starts off all right, you know. The way I wrote all my characters are, the characters are meant to be reasonably believable, you know, reasonably realistic, kind of, you know, conventional out there. Whereas the stories and the main story and the subplots are meant to be a little bit, you know, a little bit far out, a little bit unconventional or fictional, fantasy, really. And when that character's story started becoming a little bit too realistic, it's suddenly kind of like, you know, I wasn't very comfortable with that. Then anyway, the character in question, anyway, he's a third generation businessman, and his father and his grandfather before him were very successful, and they used to be building big factories, big factories, and they were quite successful at that. But unfortunately, this guy comes along and he's a little bit arrogant about things, he's a little bit haughty about things, and he gets a bit too carried away. And he builds far too many of them. And his accountant does take him aside and says, "You're building too many. You haven't got any agents and stuff. And you haven't got anyone planned to take over them. And you don't have any rent coming in for them." And he didn't listen to the accountant. He didn't listen to the attorney. He ends up firing them. And because he's just too engulfed in his own, he kind of turns into kind of a little bit, you know, what's the word I'm looking for at all? He indulges himself a bit too much. And anyway, when he finishes his latest project, a really big factory, huge factory, he can't get anyone to rent it from him. And suddenly the money dries up. And what does he do? He blames. He goes blames over there, he blames over there, he blames over there, blames everybody, innocent people. They have nothing to do with him at all. They have nothing remotely to do with his mistakes. But he blames them all the same. Because he cannot cope. He has no awareness that he's making mistakes, and he has no awareness that, you know, he's going down the rabbit hole. He's going into real trouble land. And that's where I started having problems with the character, because it's reflecting in the world at the moment. And I think the lack of awareness and the lack of abilities to cope is the cause of a lot of trouble, in fact. And anyway, you know, I'm going to rewrite that part. And hopefully it'll work out quite well, and hopefully it doesn't interfere with the other parts of the stories I wrote. And I will try to deal with that maybe in a month's time or something like that, okay? You know, maybe, say up now, May, maybe June, I will revisit it when I have it sorted out, and I'll get on part 5 to 10 in the meantime, next month. And, you know, that'll be alright. Now, where was I going to be going with the, you know, I also mentioned mindfulness last time on as well. And I just thought I'd go back into that briefly, as there's just a There's a small little story that I'm doing around my community at the moment about a fairy fort that used to be open to the public in the old days and everywhere, because it belonged to an old farmer, a very old farmer, and it's about a couple of miles from where I'm living. And everybody used to visit it, and I was always visiting it anyway. And now it's changed hands, it's in private ownership now, and nobody has access to it anymore. It's a little bit of a shame. But anyway, I just started thinking back over the years, and when I used to go visiting it when I was a young lad. And that's really where I found my association with nature and wildlife, really, to be honest with you. And I used to just turn off my old shoes, my wells-in boots, as it used to be in those days, and standing at the base of the hawthorn tree, a very, very old, very big hawthorn tree, the ones with the prickly leaves. And I used to like standing where the roots were just coming out from the trees. They were just sticking up from the ground a little bit. There was a lot of rocks around there as well. And I used to like standing there maybe 3 feet apart or something like that, put my hand up against the bark. It was very mossy bark, wild ivy on it, for about 1 minute or 2 minutes. And I used to find it very, what am I looking for? Reviving, like, charging the phone or something like that. And I used to like it. And there was always small little critters running around the place as well like that. Back in those days I wasn't too sure what one animal was from another animal. I think on one occasion there might have been a mink there or something like that. And on another occasion there might have been a hedgehog. And it was the very first time I saw a hedgehog. I knew it was a hedgehog. It's a tiny little guy. And he just came out from a small little bush, maybe 5 feet away from me, and a little look up at me, and I had a little down and gave him a little wave, and I could have swore he smiled and turned around, went back into the hedge. Anyway, I just like nature. I like woodlands, and I like forests. And when I find the world getting a little bit tough, that's where I go for a day. And I think it's just a bit of a pity, really, that so many people in the world seem to be, so I don't know what the word is, trapped in their lives, and they don't seem to be able to relax all that much anymore, and they don't seem to be able to find a level of contention. I think if people could find a level of contention, they wouldn't be so angry, and they wouldn't be always blaming, and they wouldn't be always getting smart alecky with comments about people and things like that. Basically people aren't coping, and my central character there I was talking about, he doesn't cope with the fact that he goes bankrupt, and he goes into the Mr. Hyde personality, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and there's no way back from him, I'm afraid. He goes down that road, goes down that rabbit hole, and sometimes you just can't help a person, and he goes down that road and nobody can help him. And anyway, that's the character I'm going to change. And it's just a bit of a shame, really, because, the lack of success in life can lead to an awful lot of people just turning into blamers. It's always someone else's fault. Even though the mistake that might have kick-started the problem was very small, and there's no great big issue around it. Small issue, face up to it, deal with it, it's gone. Ignore it, pretend it's not there. It gets a little bit bigger, and eventually it starts snowballing, and that's what happened to this character. So anyway, that's what goes on there, and I'm going to rewrite that part 4, and like I said, I'll revisit it. And that's pretty much it. I just thought I'd give you an update on that, and I just thought I'd mention a few things about the mindful approach and recharging and things as well, because, like I said, people do need to relax a little bit more and stop getting so, bothered with everything so easily. People are getting bothered very easily these days, and it's just snowballing, like the character did. Anyway, there you go. I won't keep you too long more today. I just thought I'd deal with part 4 there and let you know what was going on, and get out with part 5 to 10 next month. And I might mention again about the mindful approach to dealing with life and nature, and how helpful nature can be to people if they give it a chance instead of dismissing it all the time. So, there you are, that's it. Mind yourself and take care.